if he's not the Canadian Premier League's main face over the last 5 or so years, he's definitely the OG of the CPL, 4-time champion, aiming to make it 5 this year with Forge. It's Carl Bekker. Carl, welcome. I think is it the first time to Footy Prime?
I'm not sure. I feel like we might have spoke once or twice before. Maybe the first official time on the podcast, though.
Yeah, maybe like years ago now. I can't remember. There's been so many guests. But yeah, welcome to the show. Now, I remember where I was back in 2013 when TFC chose you 3rd overall, believe it or not. It makes me feel really old. I was an Edit Suite Blue at the Score television network, and it was pretty cool. I knew Bobby and Costa, of course, from Sigma. You were another Sigma product. Fast forward to now, and those academy connections still run really thick, obviously, at Forge. Listen, your career is a long career. You're 34 now, but you've still got plenty of game left in those boots, obviously, from another great season. Where do you stand? Do you reflect back on the old days, the academy days prior to that, or are you focused now very much on the present and the future?
I think it's a balance of both. Just in the way my career's kind of panned out, I think reflection and looking back at things that maybe I didn't do so well earlier in my career, just kind of growing, maturing as I get older, and using that as motivation to show up day in and day out is sort of a balance that I think is giving me a lot of success and perspective on how I kind of just go about my business day to day. So it's definitely something I reflect on pretty often.
Now, it's still a new league, right? But already Forge has its first dynasty, or dynasty, as I would say. But they'll mock me for saying dynasty. Dynasty. 4 and 5 championships. What is the Bobby Smirniotis secret? You know, as a footballer, probably very few players know him better than you. What is his secret?
This guy he's relentless in his work ethic. Every single day, no matter who we're playing against, preparation is key for him. Whether we're playing Calgary for the 31st time, he's going to show up as if it's the first. He's going to use all of the tools at his disposal, and he's going to come in with an attitude that this is the biggest game that we have, and it's the game in front of us. And he truly shows up week in and week out like that. Whether we're playing Halifax, Calgary, Chivas, TFC, Montreal, whoever it may be, that's his attitude. So it's fantastic to work with, and it's something that you kind of feed off of.
And you've been winning, consistently in this league. And what keeps that motivation up for the team to keep winning? And it's been quite impressive from not only the coach Bobby, but from the players themselves.
I mean, as a former player, I think you know this. Winning isn't guaranteed. It's not something that's a given. And the fact of the matter is, I've lost a lot in my career. I've had a ton of failures, and to be enjoying the success is something I don't want to take for granted. And that's how I show up. That's how our coaching staff shows up. And I think people feed off that.
And Sharms mentioned Dynasty before, and you did a CBC interview a few days ago where you were referred to, I don't know, it was self-proclaimed or it was the reporter, as Forge being the best dynasty in Canadian sports. And as a Montreal native and a Habs fan, that's bullshit.
Well, I would like to say that I absolutely say that. That must have been the reporter having some little creative freedom with that then. Might have to say something about that. But
hey, Dubs, there's 8 teams in CPL, right? There were 6 teams when Montreal was winning all those Stanley Cups.
Still have 24.
Not in the 70s, Sharm.
They don't really count, though.
All right.
Sorry. All right. Well, Carl, you mentioned the failures, right? So people say you need to have the failures to appreciate the victories and the success. I often think that's bullshit. Is that something you agree with? Does it make you appreciate this more now, or would you much rather have not had those and still had this?
Yeah, I mean, if I had it my way, I don't think I'd ever have a failure. I just keep going, you keep growing. It's one of those things where I think now being an older guy on the team, it's like the classic, oh, you're giving a younger guy advice, and then he doesn't necessarily take it, and you're like, I just told you not to do that. But I put myself in their shoes, and it's like, yeah, I screwed up a million times. And I think sometimes you do have to fall on your face to actually truly understand what you need to do better and reflect on some decision making. But yeah, if you could just go through life unscathed, having success all the time, that'd be pretty sweet. I'd take that for sure.
In offering that advice, because your pathway's been interesting. You went to the NCAA, you went to BC, you've played in MLS, you've played in USL. Now long-standing stalwart of CPL, the face of the league, you might even say. So like in that advice, do you talk to them about what's best for them and figuring it out? And do you think that's changed? And what was the most important point of your career and like the year that you could point to as being kind of really key to your development as a player?
Yeah, I try and use personal experience more than anything, just because I think that's just who I am, and I think staying true to that is important. If I start trying to be this philosophical guy, I think everyone would look at me like, who's this idiot? Get out of
See,
here.
Jimmy? See?
So I think
That's Bobby's job anyway, isn't it?
yeah, he's the Greek philosopher. I'll leave that to him. Yeah, it's just staying true to myself. I think a crucial point for myself was after 2016, that year in Montreal, when they didn't pick up my contract and the phone sort of stopped ringing, and it was a little bit of a wake-up call, a reality check. That something I said earlier, like nothing in this game is a given, nothing is guaranteed, and like a morning's notice, everything can kind of stop, and it is what it is. So it was definitely a turning point for me, where I had to really just look at myself and say, what am I doing right? What do I want to do? What do I want from this game, and what am I willing to put into it? And that was where I really started to fall back in love with the game. Took a chance going to San Francisco, and it was great. It was a great group of guys. Played under Mark DeSantos, and he really kind of instilled some confidence in me that I think was lacking at the time. I knew I had ability, but it was just putting it together on a consistent basis, and that year was crucial for me. And then since then, it was just really being like, how can I get the most out of this game in the time I have left? And CPL happened, took a chance, didn't know that it was going to turn out to be what it has in these last 5 years, which has been pretty incredible. Playing in Champions League was a thing that I definitely wrote off. Didn't think that would ever happen again. So being on stages like that, having massive wins we've had against MLS teams has been incredible. And I think anyone who was sitting in a room in 2019 and said, oh, this is all the stuff we were going to achieve in the next 5 years, anyone else would look at them and be like, oh, this guy's crazy. But we've had an ownership and a staff that bought in from the beginning, and we've had players who've come in and bought in right away, and it's allowed us to have the success that we've had.
Kyle, I said on a show the other day that I'm watching you play, and you seem to be enjoying your football so much. I actually said it looks like Kyle Bekker's 20 years old out in that pitch right now. You still got a number of years left to give, but have you thought about what you want to do after football?
Yeah, that's a reality I can't deny. My contract's actually up at the end of this year, and I was like, whoa, am I really to be done? Ready to be done right now? And the answer is no, because I come in every day, I have a smile on my face, my body feels good, I enjoy it, I still like being in the room, so I know that there is more to give, and if they're willing to take me, then absolutely I'm going to keep playing. But yeah, it's honestly I think I've really bought into the fact that I have more to learn, I have more to give, and I enjoy it. And you said it there, I'm simply just enjoying myself. I'm lucky to have a coach that believes in me and instills confidence in me to let me go out week in and week out and try some of the stupid passes that I do sometimes, but sometimes they come off and they look great.
I was going to say, Kyle, Footy Prime, we always talk about it being therapy for us. When the phone stopped ringing, sorry to bring you back to the dark times, but when the phone stopped ringing, how did you adapt? How did you get through it? Because that's not easy for any athlete or any person in business across the board. What was your kind of go-to? What did you have to remind yourself about?
Honestly, just a brutal honesty, looking at myself in the mirror. Jimmy, obviously, we've worked together in the past, and he knows this about me, I think, or I would hope. I think sometimes when people meet me, they think I have a little bit of a chip on the shoulder, but I think I'm just the first person to call it like I see it. And that I don't hold any punches for myself either. I look back at those early TFC days, and yeah, there was a frustration in wanting to play more and do more and know that I had more to give. But there was also a reality where I wasn't necessarily up to the professional standard day in and day out. So while I was doing it in short bursts, I wasn't doing it over a season and looking at that the long goal and putting it all together on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, there was frustrations I had from the staff and playing time and all those things, but then there was also a reality where I wasn't living like a pro day in and day out. So I wasn't piecing it all together. And so when that phone stopped ringing, it was just look yourself in the mirror, understand where you need to grow as a person, as a player, and kind of piecing those together and hoping that there was an opportunity for myself to have one more kick at the can, and luckily Sam Frank called.
You know, Wonger mentions therapy there, and certainly this was therapy for us, but now it's become the reason for us to need therapy.
It's not. It's stressful. I don't like it a lot of the time.
Thanks, Jimmy. Listen, welcome back to the show, by the way. You sound great. You listen to Echo now. Carl, but you mentioned there before how you talk to younger players. You say, like, what don't you get? You know, it's obvious now. Who was the Carl Bekker to you earlier in your career? Was there one? Did you need one? Was that what was lacking?
Yeah, I think, honestly, if I'm being like 100% truthful, I think it was something that was lacking for me. In those early years in TFC, there was just so much changeover that we didn't necessarily have someone to come in and be like, all right, I'm going to galvanize the entire group. I think what you ended up seeing on my way out is you saw a guy like Michael Bradley, who isn't necessarily the biggest voice in a room, but something I think that having to play with him for a year and then looking back, just seeing his relentless work rate and how he was coming from playing at Roma, where he probably wasn't playing as much as he wanted to, coming back to TFC in the MLS at a younger age, and then just fully being like, I'm gonna put this team and club on my back. Definitely rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but ultimately everyone who saw it for what it was, which was incredible, ended up reaping the rewards and the success that they had for years to come. And so I think looking at that was impressive, but I don't think there was necessarily a personality that someone could kind of like smack me upside the head and be like, listen, buddy, you need to do this better. And at the same time, it's like I need to take ownership over what I was doing, and I'm not sitting here being like, oh, it was someone else's fault for their lack of leadership. I think it was just a sign of the time at the club.
But then moving on now, you're saying you're still learning. There's still things to learn. Do you mean that as a footballer, as a man, like yeah, as a footballer?
Both, honestly, both. The thing about football that's unbelievable is it's ever changing. It's so fluid. You can play in different roles. You can play in different formations. There's new tactics coming out all the time. There's literally just learning how to do new tricks, as stupid as that sounds, but like going out and being able to implement it on a day-in-day basis. I love that stuff. I'm fascinated by it, and I want to be able to buy into it now while I'm still playing, because as a coach, it's a completely different perspective. If that is the route I choose to go. So yeah, it's also just how you conduct yourself as a human being. Being a good person, being a good leader, all that stuff, good role model. I'm a father now, so that's changed my life. My life's kind of flipped upside down, which is unbelievable, and something that I think has helped me on the field, as crazy as that sounds. So all of the stuff combined.
Back to Bobby. I know you're an Arsenal fan, right?
Oh, Dubs is going to talk, but her microphone
sorry,
was
Dubs.
off.
Yeah, I can see your microphone's off, Dubs.
Yeah.
Hey,
Good
well,
question,
let me.
Dubs.
I started now, so I may as well finish my question. But then you got the next question. Okay, Dubs, that button there saying mute,
Right.
That means we don't hear you. Okay.
Thank you, Sharms.
Okay. So you're an Arsenal fan, right? So you obviously must have respect for Mikel Arteta and what he's done there. Do you think there's any comparisons to Bobby Smirniotis? I mean, obviously you're not on the ground at Arsenal right now, but Bobby's I don't know if a disciplinarian is the right word, but he's obviously a guy who's got a very definite message that the players are all buying into, which seems to be the same way with Arsenal right now under Arteta, despite last week's loss.
You just had to throw that one in there. Huh? I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of the preparation, the demand of buying into a team's philosophies and things like that. But I think even just the way they are, they're so different. One's super animated. I think Bobby's a little bit more reserved. I think you'll still get a classic freak out on the sideline game to game, which is hilarious. But I think they're very different from that aspect. But in terms of the preparation and the demands and the tactics, I think there's a lot of similarities there for sure.
Have you thought about growing a beer like Bobby?
I don't have that. I know that's not in my bag for sure.
well, thank Christ, because Insigne would have pulled it probably. Dubs?
Yeah, I was going to ask, obviously, a key to your longevity, or a part of it, is your adaptability. But now being a new dad, how has that changed your game day routine? Like it must mess with it a little bit, right? And so how have you adapted there?
Honestly, it's just made better, because I think the second I'm out of here, I can check out a little bit, and it's it's sort of like released me from like agonizing over a bad pass or not necessarily the best performance or whatever. So I think it's allowed me to like to show up every single day and just be fully bought in for my time in this building. And then the second I leave, it's like, oh, I put a shift in. I know I worked hard. It might not have been my best day, or if it was a good day, I'm a little more happy about it, whatever. And then I leave because there's just bigger fish to fry, essentially. On game days, it's a little crazier in the morning for sure. But it's also been like, all right, you got to go to bed earlier. Sweet. If you're going to be up at 6 a.m. running around, playing with blocks and just destroying our house, then you got to go to bed earlier. So I think ultimately it's helped.
Hamilton's been, I have to say, one of the cornerstones of the CPL. The community of Hamilton, we have friends from the Forge supporters group, Tony, Charles, James. They tell how special is the community and the supporters group for a player to know they have the support of the city and the community.
It's been fantastic. They've been bought in since the very beginning. You're seeing it grow game in, game out, year over year. The support just continues to get bigger and bigger. Anytime we have a massive game, they show out in huge numbers. And I think that's just a testament to football in this country. Hamilton, like so many other cities in Canada, is a melting pot of so many different cultures that love the game first and foremost. And they've obviously seen the success we have. So when they come out and they show the support, it's fantastic. But week in and week out in the CPL, rain or shine, they're in their corner. They're making some noise. We feel the love. One of the things that I really like about them, and I said this the other week, that last home game we had against Ottawa, when it clearly wasn't our best performance, they weren't holding any punches. And it's funny because I think some who've played in a sort of a smaller venue, not in front of thousands of fans, it's funny, you can actually hear it a little better than if there is 40,000 people, because that kind of just becomes one hum. So when there is a little less people, the chirps become a little bit more personal. And so it's great. Like I love it. They're letting you know. And I definitely had a couple poor passes in that game, and there's a few people like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And it's like, I love that. Like, it just means that you guys care, and we're not getting soft, and no one's getting used to winning and thinking that it's a prerequisite to being at Forge. So they let us have it, and that's great.
Yeah, the great final last season at home. How important is it to get the final again for you?
Yeah, you guys talked about Forge kind of being a cornerstone of this league, and that's what comes with it, the expectation that we're playing in finals, and we're playing in finals at home. We know that we have a massive fan base here. We know we have a venue that can put on a great product for the neutral fan in this country. So we know that there is an expectation that we're playing in that final, and it's here in Hamilton. So that's a responsibility that we want to shoulder. Hopefully we can get it done.
Is Bobby insisting on some time practicing Olympicos in training?
I mean, that is, like, you can't write the script any better than that. It's ridiculous. The Olympico in extra time in front of your home supporters to win a final is it's a joke. So
how often does Borges talk about that or bring it up?
He honestly doesn't talk about it too much. I feel like he should probably bring it up a little bit more. He is honestly outside of the pitch, where he can be a little chirpy and be nipping at everyone's heels. He's a very quiet, humble guy, so he doesn't bring it up too often.
Do you think that was the best moment for you? Like, winning a championship was the last one you played?
I mean, yeah, that one's tough to beat. That was tough to beat. I honestly, my favorite was the first one, winning it in Calgary, sort of like a walk-off goal, especially after the tension that was building up against the two teams in that first season. I think that one is might edge it out a little bit, but 2023 was hard to beat for sure.
Good to ask you. You mentioned it was 31 games, isn't it? 31 matches over the last 5 years between Forge and Cavalry.
I saw that stat yesterday. That's outrageous.
Someone was telling me
it's like the Manchester Derby. You have to go back to like 2004 to get that many games or something like that.
Is that what it is? Wow.
Yeah, the old 18.
Who do you hate playing against? Who do you want to punch in the nose on Calgary?
There's no. See, I don't hate playing against them. I actually really like it. It's fun, and I think those historically have been some of my best games, because I think there is just like that added little extra to it, and those games are fun. There's
no one you'll give a little. You'll pinch the back of the arm because you know they're right beside you.
I'm not really a pincher. I'm more of like just come in with a nice late tackle that is never any chance of winning the ball. But I'm still soft, so I'm not going to hurt anyone.
Is it like a mild dislike, or is it a raging hatred at this point? The rivalry there, something in between.
Don't care for him.
Yeah.
But that's good though, right? This league needs these rivalries. I mentioned it
100%.
before. The Ottawa York's got something potentially,
Yeah.
happening there. Let's hope so. Anyway, we'll see. But I think the league needs genuine rivalries, and this has been one from year one. Cavalry and Forge. It's not going anywhere. That one.
100%. And for me, when it's a rivalry that's built on stuff that's happening on the field and the competition, then it's fantastic. I think there was a moment there where we were trying to make it about all kinds of nonsense that wasn't necessarily true, and we weren't really getting the full story, and it just became a little bit of gossipy and felt kind of lame. So I didn't really want to buy into any of that. But in terms of the straight up competition, the second the whistle blows, yeah, I don't care for them, and I want to win, and it is a rivalry. Do
you like the newish playoff format?
Like anyone else, when it first came out, I was like, what are we doing here, guys? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. But ultimately, the way it's panned out over these 2 years in games coming down to the wire in terms of like the last game of the season, finding out playoff position, I think it worked out better than anyone could have imagined. You're obviously adding a game in a market which is, I think, key to what we are trying to do here in the CPL in terms of growing the game. And so from that aspect, I think it's fantastic. I think there's got to be a point when down the line, when we continue to grow and you add more teams and there's a little bit more of a stable structure where you go back to more of a classic format. But for the time being, I think it's been great. Who's the most famous Oakville footballer? Carl Lang, Diana Matheson, or Kyle Bekker? I think Diana. The success she had with Carl she crushed it too. She was a little bit of a celebrity growing up. And our paths have crossed a few times, and yeah, she was big time. But I'm gonna give it to Diana. I like it.
I played in a charity match. It was Carol Lang at Oakville. Carol Lang's farewell match or something like that.
Did she get
No, she's nowhere close to me because I was too busy with my head in my hands. But I got a police. We got a police escort and a bus to the ground. I never felt so important in my life.
A police escort in Oakville?
Yeah, it was put on. It was so well done.
I think I've had one or two of those, but it wasn't to a testimonial.
I mean, I've had police escorts.
Sometimes when he plays the charity matches, he wears the shin pads. Remember with the big ankle guards?
yeah, the slip-ons.
Those are the worst.
Yeah. Oh. So many guys wear those things, right? They're mostly horrible to play with.
No.
Listen, Carl, thanks so much for this, mate. Good luck for the rest of the season. Obviously, a massive one on the weekend, and then whatever happens, you've got another crack at it, which is how this format works, right? Yeah. But yeah, we always love watching Forge play. We're big fans of Bobby here in the podcast and yourself. So yeah, good luck, and let's chat again sometime soon.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle.